Hello, everybody. This is going to be Chapter 2 of An Esoteric Cosmology by Rudolf Steiner. The Mission of Manichaeism. The purpose of this lecture is to expand and deepen what was said in the preceding lecture. The difference between occult brotherhoods before and after Christianity is that before the advent of Christianity, their chief mission was to guard the sacred tradition. Afterwards, it was to form and mold the future. Occult science is not abstract and dead, but active and living. Christian occultism is derived from the Manichaeans, whose founder, Manes, lived on the earth 300 years after Jesus the Christ. The essence of Manichaean teaching relates to the doctrine of good and evil. In ordinary thought, the good and evil are two irreducible qualities, one of which, the good, must destroy the other, the evil. To the Manichaeans, however, evil is an integral part of the cosmos, collaborating in its evolution, finally, to be absorbed and transfigured by the good. The great feature of Manichaeism is that it studies the function of evil and of suffering in the world. To understand the development of humanity, it must be viewed in its whole range. Only so can we see its high ideal. To believe that an ideal is not necessary for action is a great error. A man without ideals is a man without power. The function of an ideal in life is that of steam in an engine. Steam comprises, in a small area, a vast expanse of condensed space, hence its tremendous power of expansion. The magic power of thought is of the same nature. Let us then rise to the thought of the ideal of humanity as a whole, guided by the thread of its evolution through the epochs of time. Systems, like that of Darwin, are also seeking for this guiding thread. The grandeur of Darwinian thought is not disputed, but it does not explain the integral evolution of man. It only sees the lower, inferior elements. So, it is with all purely physical explanations which do not recognize the spiritual essence of man's being. Theories of evolution based entirely on physical facts attribute to man an animal origin because science has established that in fossilized man the brow is lacking. Occultism, knowing that physical man is but an expression of etheric man, sees something very different. At the present point of time, the etheric body of man has practically the same form as his physical body, although extending a little beyond it. But the further back we go in history, the greater is the difference in size between the etheric head and the physical head. The etheric head is found to be much larger. Especially was this so in the period of earthly development which precedes our own. The men living at that time were Atlanteans. Geologians, indeed, are beginning to discover traces of ancient Atlantis, of the minerals and flora of this ancient continent now submerged under the ocean that bears its name. Traces of man himself have not yet been discovered, but that is only a matter of time. Occult prophecies have always preceded authentic history. The frontal part of the human head began to develop in the European races, which followed those of Atlantis. The focus point of consciousness in the Atlanteans lay outside the brow, in the etheric head. Today it lies within the physical head, a little higher than the nose. Niflheim, or Nebelheim, the land of mists, in Germanic mythology, is the country of the Atlanteans. In that age, the earth was hotter and still enveloped in a vaporous cloud. The continent of Atlantis was destroyed by a series of deluges, as a consequence of which the terrestrial atmosphere cleared. Then, and only then, came the blue sky, the storm, rain, the rainbow. That is why the Bible says that when Noah's Ark had come to rest, the rainbow the bow in the cloud was a new token of alliance between God and man. The eye of the Aryan race, anything to do with the Aryans as we currently understand them from the Nazi regime, etc. This is, just let me interject here. The ancient Hindus referred to themselves as Aryan. So that's what it's referring to. It has nothing to do with the later iteration within Germany where the Hitler regime referred to themselves as the Aryan race and such. This is completely removed from that. Just an important note. The I of the Aryan race could only be consciously realized when the etheric body was centralized in the physical brain. Not until then could man begin to say, I. The Atlanteans spoke of themselves in the third person. Darwinism has made many errors in regard to the differentiation expressed by the races actually existing on the earth. The higher races have not descended from the lower races. On the contrary, the latter represent the degeneration of the higher races which have preceded them. Suppose there are two brothers, one of whom is handsome and intelligent, the other ugly and dull-witted. Both proceed from the same father. What should we think of a man who believed that the intelligent brother descends from the idiot? That is the kind of error made by Darwinism in regard to the races. Man and animal have a common origin. The animals represent a degradation of the one common ancestor, whose higher development comes to expression in man. This should not give rise to pride, for it is only thanks to the lower kingdoms that the higher races have been able to develop. Christ washes the feet of the apostles. That is a symbol of the humility of the initiate in the face of his inferiors. The initiate owes his existence to those who are not initiated, hence the deep humility of those who truly know in face of those who do not. The tragic aspect of cosmic evolution is that one class of beings must abase themselves in order that the other may rise. In this sense, we can appreciate the beauty of Paracelsus' words, I have observed all beings, stones, plants, animals, and they seem to me nothing but scattered letters, man being the Word, living and whole. The animals are crystallized passions. In the course of human and animal evolution, the inferior descends from the superior. The contradictions in man, the way in which the elements mingle in him, constitute his karma, his destiny. Just as a man has wrested himself from the animal, so will he wrest himself from evil. But never yet has he passed through a crisis as severe as that of the present age. The evil and good are still within man, just as in days of yore the animals were within him. The aim of Manichaeism is to sublimate men to be redeemers. The master must be the servant of all. True morality flows from an understanding of the mighty laws of the universe. And just to re-encapsulate that short chapter there, when he speaks of the races and when he speaks specifically of the Aryan period, the Aryan period, I believe, is the period after it's the fifth period, the fifth post-Atlantean period, which we are in right now. So, according to esoteric history, we're in the fifth post-Atlantean epoch. And Aryan is just a kind of like an identifier to identify that which came after the Atlantean. And as I said before, you'll notice the Hindus actually refer to themselves as Aryan and whatnot. It has nothing to do with actual race in the way that we think of it. And then when he speaks of the races, he's actually speaking of various degrees of the spiritual races. He even includes mineral, plant, and animal as an identifier of the type of certain types of races. And it also gets into the different delineations of spirit, different spiritual forms as races, the higher and the lower. So, excuse me, I think that's important because a lot of this gets twisted, especially when an author like Helena Blavatsky speaks a lot to these concepts. She's speaking in a spiritual sense, and then later on, different societies, which, like the Thule Society, which a lot of Nazis were a part of, and Hitler was very interested in this occult lore, but twisted it out of all recognition from what it really actually meant. And then you can see how these concepts get twisted and distorted. I mean, quite honestly, the swastika that was used is actually an ancient Hindu sign for the sun wheel. It's a symbol for the sun. And that regime took it and kind of used it as their own, but debased what the true meaning of it meant. Now we look at that symbol as a complete symbol of evil. But in history, that symbol was actually a very favorable sign. It was a sign of good luck back in the really early times, dating back to the early Hindu religion and whatnot. So it's just kind of interesting how things get twisted and debased over time. And that's what's happened to the whole entire system of esoterics. Over time, it's been taken by nefarious actors and twisted toward their ends, and it's been completely debased. So now people look at esoteric things as being something twisted and evil, and they truly are not. It's just the misuse of them, which has become twisted and evil, and that's really all people tend to know about it these days is just their debased use. So a lot of people's introduction into the concept of things esoteric is that, oh, it's this evil way of manipulating man and whatnot. And that is part of it. That can be a part of it. That's the debased version of all things esoteric. They're taking something good and pure and they're twisting it and debasing it to use toward their own ends. I mean, it's, similar to like any tool. A hammer. You can build a house with it, or you can smash somebody over the head with it. Fire. You can cook a fantastic meal for a ton of people, or you can burn their house down. It's no different with esoterics. It can uplift man, or it can be used to suppress man. And at this point in time, there certainly are elements of rich elitists who have used this to manipulate the minds of man over time. So that's the end of chapter 2. I will do the next chapter when I get around to it. Thanks for listening if you made it this far. Chapter 3 will be up soon, so thanks again. We'll talk to you later.